Hello and welcome to Jeffersontown United Methodist Church's midweek update number 5. Each week we have been sharing some information regarding our congregation and plans as we look to move forward into the future. My name's Bob Howell and I'm pastor of this church, and I want to begin this particular video clip by saying how incredibly proud I am and humbled at being the pastor of this church. You are a wonderful congregation, and I truly am honored to serve in your midst, and we will continue to work to build the ministries of this wonderful congregation. I want to talk a little bit again about reopening the church, because we had shared previously in both an update and a worship video a date that was a target date, and then we sent out a survey to kind of get a feel for that. I want to talk about that a little bit, and I think you're going to see that there will be a few changes that we're looking to make. As per the governor's timetable, as you remember, churches were open to reassemble inside and worship again together anytime after the 20th, which would mean next week, and particularly then the 24th, next Sunday, a week from this Sunday. And there's political aspects and everything, and there have been some court decisions and rulings and all that I don't want to get into. I just want to say that I was from the very outset and remain uneasy with that timetable. I know we have some that could come back. I know there are churches that made a court case to where they could reopen. I know, as you've heard, a church that went ahead and opened without a court case. They were just going to stay open and flaunt that. I don't get that as the model for us to follow. I know that we will be able to open. I know that we will slowly get back. Understand things will evolve in worship for a while yet. I know there are churches that will be opening this next week. I know that there are some that are other denominations open. At this point, there are no United Methodist churches that I'm aware of open for worship yet. I also know that there are some churches that are going to wait for a while. When this first came out and we were talking with clergy about when they were starting, and I've shared this before, I've talked to a number. There are still a number of churches around us that are uncertain as to when they'll open. Some significant large churches that have not announced a reopen date yet to their congregation. I know that some are kicking around ideas and thoughts with their church, and so we're kind of kicking that around and trying to get a real feel for what it should be. I remember in the governor's words that he said, just because a church can reopen doesn't mean it should. I'll be perfectly honest, that resounds with me, particularly understanding the congregation that I am serving here now. If I were at one of my previous churches where a predominance of the congregation was younger, I would probably continue my plans to open worship on Pentecost Sunday. But that is not the makeup of this congregation. We have some younger people, but that's not the majority of our church. Being younger doesn't necessarily mean you're impervious to this pandemic. But it does mean the likelihood that if you were to get such a situation, you would handle it better. We know that. We know that some that are younger would have already had perhaps the COVID-19, and were able to overcome it without even aware of it. But then there are some that are younger who are suffering greatly from the effects of this awful virus. There are 3 basic requirements to reopen a house of worship. And I want to share those 3 quickly with you. One is supplies, and we're doing really well on supplies. One of the things you have to do is have masks. Well, we were fortunate to have one place of business give us 100 of the surgical type masks, and we appreciate that. We have these for any who perhaps will come to worship and forget to bring their own mask. Now remember, we've been hoping that you've had a mask. Mine's a Go Cubs. But we hope that you remember to have a mask that we've made for you so that you could wear this and be protected. We still have some, and we'd be glad to share those with you. It also requires hand sanitizer. And so hand sanitizer is another thing we'll need. Well, why, thank you, Dayron. The hand sanitizer we have in abundance as well. Let me take this off so you can hear me a little better. We do have masks, we do have sanitizer. We've ordered 2 more machines that are tabletop machines that are automatic dispenser. You don't have to touch anything. Fortunately, all of our restrooms are equipped with soap machines that are automatic dispenser. Our desire and our hope is to remove every aspect we can that could be a problem for keeping a safe environment for all. We have the masks, we have the sanitizer, we have gloves. We've been fortunate to be able to get enough gloves. Now, you don't have to wear a glove, obviously, in worship. We're not going to make you wear a mask in worship either. We're going to encourage that. Some cannot for various reasons, and that we understand, but we'll be very careful with that. These gloves will mostly be for our cleaning crew because we're going to have to come in and clean down everything right where I've just touched. Even though I don't feel I have any COVID-19 infection in me that I could be infectious to someone else, you don't know. So where I'm touching now, we'll wipe down when we're done. It will be wiped down this week. We've wiped down even when people have not been here, except for a few to make the recordings for our worship. We've wiped down everything that has been used or touched and kept that going. So we want to be able to have the gloves for those purposes and the teams of people. We'll be asking for some volunteers when we restart. See if you can do that. We also know that we need some disinfectants. And so we have some wipes and we have some spray and some liquid solutions that we'll be using that will disinfect for the COVID coronavirus germs and make sure that everything is good as we can have it. That's the first thing that's required to reopen, are supplies. The second thing that's required to reopen is a plan. I've shared a little bit of that plan already. We have, through a few separate meetings now in smaller number, created, I think, a fairly comprehensive plan for our church to reopen and how we will handle things. Now, there are still other aspects of our congregation as a whole that'll have to be developed. Daycare is going to have some work developing their plan and gathering their resources. Our outside organizations like Scouts and Al-Anon and Alateen and TOPS and others who come into our facility, we have to develop plans and a timetable for them as well. But as far as the worship, people coming in, we're working on a good plan. So I think that we have that developed. It would include things like spacing, and we'll talk about that in just a second. So if we need supplies and we need a plan and we feel good about both of those, the third thing that's required to reopen a service is people willing to come. Now, that's where our survey that we sent out this past week, that's where this comes into play. it's obvious from a majority of the responses that we receive that the proposed target date of the 31st, which would have been Pentecost Sunday, is not a date most would be willing to return at. We do have about 15 or so that ready to go tomorrow if we did it. But that's not the majority, and it's a concern. So I ask for those of you who are ready and want to come back so bad, I ask for some patience. You know, we had planned on starting just 1 week after the governor's timetable just to show a little precaution, and we're doing our due diligence. But due diligence is more than just simply a week in this case. For this congregation, we need to wait. And for those of you who are yearning to come back and maybe a little frustrated that we aren't opening earlier, I pray your patience and understanding. I guess I take all responsibility if you are unhappy with the decision. The decision is this: we're going to push back to the middle of June. Now, from one of the earlier times that we were talking about this, and I met with the mayor here, J-Town, and other pastors in a Zoom meeting, and we talked about reopening. And I know that the Christian church, J-Town Christian, the Disciples Church, and the Lutheran Church, both from an early point mentioned they were looking at mid-June. And that's the case in a few other churches that I'm hearing from as well now. We could reopen. We could have a small group in, and when we do reopen, it might still be a small group. But we're going to do due diligence, and we're going to wait for the sake of some that just feel it's a little too early. And so that's where I'm headed. And so for the month of June, starting with that 14th, and then the 21st and the 28th. And remember, the 21st would be Father's Day, and that actually will turn out, I think, in a way we'll celebrate it, would be sort of a Parents' Day. We'll have gifts for both the mothers and the fathers on that Sunday. But on the 14th, the 21st, and the 28th, just for that month of June that we're meeting, we won't meet the first Sunday, but we will the next. We're going to have just one service at 10 o'clock. It's not the second service time. It's not the early service time. It might not be what you would like, but it seems to work best for the safe conditions of our church. There's a lot of ongoing cleaning that's going to happen for even one service, let alone two. We have to continue to monitor an ongoing cleaning of the handrails on Sunday as people are coming in. You can't clean it before people come, and then the first person comes in and now it's not clean. And now you're the second or third or fifth person to use the handrail. We need to constantly have someone there to clean the handrails, to disinfect it with some of the wipes that we've shown already. We need to watch over the elevator buttons. So you're going to be pushing to go up and down. We're going to ask only immediate family ride the elevator together at one time. Wait for an opportunity to come up if you use the elevator, and that's fine. We're going to place 2 pews in between each pew that will be in use. So we won't just alternate pews, we'll have 2 pews and give us plenty of spacing. And in this sanctuary, we can do that. There are churches that are smaller that cannot. And we're going to take advantage of the opportunity that we have and do this. Don't romanticize what worship is going to be. To return is not going to be like we worshiped in January or February. We are going to have Mass. We are going to distance ourselves. We're not going to shake hands and slap each other on the back and get face to face and hug and say, boy, I missed you. We're going to be cautious and careful. We're going to come into the house of the Lord, and we're just going to worship. And then it's not about us, it's about the Lord. And God will be glorified and worshiped with these safety precautions. They'll be awkward for us, but they're important and vital. So that's what we're going to look to do. Now, if you want to fellowship outside, that's on you. But while we're in here, the gathering area will not be a place to gather. There'll be a place to walk through. We'll be dismissing in sections so that, again, we don't all crowd out the door together. But we're going to try to cover everything that we can do. Our doors in the sanctuary will be open during worship. So again, ventilation is better. All of these things are just so important. I know that there are some still who will not be able to attend when we do start again. They won't be able to attend for quite a while. And so for those, we're going to continue to record a service. And at that point, we'll put that out. Dayron will upload that to YouTube just as we're doing now on Sunday afternoons. And if you haven't the opportunity to come and worship yet, you can watch that. Now, until that 14th of June, we'll continue to do our normal weekly online worship service. This is the best I can figure to do for the care of this entire church. This weighs heavily on me. Continue to pray for me as I continue to pray for you. And remember, God is good, even when the times are not.